The video will be called "How Do We Know Ethiopians Are Black?" Because I feel the same. I've been very much intrigued and I want to say fact, but now the idea of the motherhood being established first, that motherhood was established first. Motherhood was known before fatherhood could be established. In other words, motherhood was recognized first. And from the fleshy or the earthly, the natural genesis in which the mother and motherhood was recognized and known, there was no doubt about motherhood. This is where we get the modern saying, mama's baby, father's maybe. And this is a saying that from my own natural fleshy culture, my earthly family, kith and kin, many of them from down south in the Americas. That was a saying I recall hearing this saying as I grew up. Mama's baby, father's maybe. And when you're young, and this is one thing that's good about parables, and I think that we in this present time, and those of us, especially in the diaspora, we don't know enough parables, and especially for education in our homes, our households, and for our children, and for the next generation, we don't quote and speak, especially rightly, a lot of these ancient parables, and therefore there's a danger of the loss of that ancient wisdom, because of such a statement like mama's baby, father's maybe, it's something that I heard when I was like real young, but you hear this and you're like, oh, okay, so it sounds like a verse from a song or something like that. But then as you get older, and if you retain these things in your consciousness as you get older, and go through experiences where you have kind of a eureka moment, you understand, like you're illuminated by either your own experience or somebody else's experience, and then you remember this proverb, your mama's baby, father's maybe. And you say, how interesting is that? And now, if we scroll forward now to the present time, we have baby mama dramas, and we have the so-called deadbeat baby fathers, you know what I'm saying, especially amongst us as black folks, you understand, as so-called Negroes or black folks, especially here in the Americas. And then the connection with that, the background is how to make a slave. It's very important to put into this context how to make a slave. A couple other recommended books would be Shahrazad Ali's book about understanding the black woman, especially for us, and then a quintessential book, as well as the we consider in the positive and noble sense this to be one of our chief sisters, mothers, daughters, wives of our nation. Both of these sisters, Shahrazad Ali, but especially we was focusing on Dr. Frances Cress Welsing, because what she describes in the ISIS papers, the key to the colors, is scientific. You see what I'm saying? It is almost pure science, yet it still has a very, as they would say, down-to-earth embeddability. You see, it's pure science, and you can get into the higher levels of it, but what she has revealed and what Shahrazad Ali has revealed connected with how to make a slave. And then now, what we need to be able to begin to understand is the bigger context. So what we're doing as once lost but now found Beta Israel is identifying ourselves. You understand, starting from where we're at, seeking to recognize where we're at. Well, how do we get here? You understand, we as black folks in America, what do we go through? Therefore, how to make a slave and that whole experience. But the Bible is important to recognize that so-called mythology And it is an ancient mythology, because myth means story and logos, logia, means word. So it is like a word picture. You understand? Because we have black folks, wherever you find black folks in the world, if they have any so-called blackness in them, they are very descriptive, and they use these unique idioms and expressions that become so universal that other races tend to adopt black slang and ideas that emanated, so to speak, from black people's experience and black people's culture. I mean, it doesn't take one to have a so-called rocket science degree to really recognize that reality. I mean, you're even hearing a lot of white folks today, and this is one saying, many of you know it is what it is. You hear this on even political shows. I'm watching some of these so-called political shows about Obama and what's going on in the midterm elections, so forth and so on. That's what time we're in presently. And you're hearing these passable expressions that have been generated and made popular by the lost sheep, by black folks. But anyway, there's a lot that we can talk about, but we just want to put a word here on the record concerning this idea of the motherhood being known before fatherhood could be established. If we would understand the ancient past, the former cultures and societies that have, in a sense, set the template for us that we as so-called modern people are so ignorant of. Such a statement like mama's baby, father's maybe, accurately describes within a kind of parabolical, logical phrase, within a proverb, so to speak, within a saying, actually describes what ones like, say, Gerald Macy goes through pages and pages and volumes, giving evidence and detail and additional information to prove his point. You understand? But if one would ask me, well, what is that about? For me to say, well, you heard the statement. Have you heard the saying before? Mama's baby, father's maybe. That's what this is about, and it transcends just the so-called sociological layers of society, and actually is a part and is embedded within religion, is embedded within our spirituality, which both of them, religion and spirituality, is based on varying interpretations of the ancient root mythos in the genesis of humanity. And we know that the oldest human beings were found in Africa, and some of the oldest bones in what we call the Great Lakes region, or some would say the Ethiopia region, you understand? And we're not going to debate exactly what and where was Ethiopia, but even in Ethiopia, where the modern Ethiopia exists, some of the oldest bones actually of human beings have been found. So it shouldn't be surprising when we start to study Egyptology and see these connections. But here's what has become very interesting for myself, and what inspired even this brief audio dissertation, is how the motherhood, and from that the goddess aspect, the divine feminine aspect, preceded, right? In a sense, historically speaking, from the evidence that we have, preceded the fatherhood, or what ones would call the patriarchal. You might be familiar with this in terms of matriarchal, patriarchal. But the way that these subject matters have been presented is vastly different from the way that they were intended. Now, true, the motherhood was known. In other words, one would, generally speaking, know who their mother is. You understand? It's not hard to recognize that that child was born from that woman. If you was there, those witnesses, one saw it. But now the question often is, who is the father? Now we know a whole lot of drama, both in art and in ancient poetry, modern films and books, all surround itself, even religion, if you look at it. If we talk about the Bible, a lot of it surrounds basic interpretations and practices concerning family relations and how these are interpreted. I saw a page in Gerald Macy's lectures that was interesting when